admit all. Okay, everyone is trickling in nicely.
You want us to mute ourselves when other people?
It's fine. Yeah, the sound is okay. So if you would want to keep the mics on so that you could talk or say something, that's okay. If I feel that there's some background noise, I can just mute it from here, so it's no problem.
I'm going to keep mine mute until I talk because I have a baby right now.
Okay, yeah. I mean, ideally, that's better for the sound. But if you feel like you're going to be doing some talking before it's your turn, then you can keep it on. Okay, so hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, because we're here from so many different parts of the world, which is lovely. And I want to thank you all for being here. And I want to thank all the wonderful contributors for their brilliant work. This is an exceptional issue. First of all, you can't read it on an empty stomach because there's a lot of stuff that, you know, would make you feel a lot of things. And secondly, because there's just so much soul in it. I don't know if it's because of the food theme or the nurture theme, but there's so much soul in it. It's so alive. If I were to describe this issue, it is very, very alive. There's a lot of transformation in it. I mean, you see food as various symbols. You see food as ingredients for art. For example, the cover art that you've all seen. Tortilla, bread, and potatoes that look like Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring, and so many other marvelous things as well that went into the issue. So thank you again for making it wonderful. And thank you for being here to further give it pulse and life. You know, before the pandemic, people used to get together for dinner parties. Well, this is our dinner party. It's virtual, but real. There's a lot of food to offer, verbally and in any other way. So I want to welcome you once again, and we will begin our session with Ruth Padel, who we are very honored to welcome once again to an Indelible event. Ruth also opened the Festival of Literature, which happened in March this year. And Ruth will have her new novel, which took about 10 years, right, Ruth? Is that how long? Yes, 10 years to write. It's finally coming out this week. And I'm sure it's a masterpiece, just like anything else that she writes. So for those of you who do not know Ruth Padel, if you exist, Ruth Padel is an award-winning British poet and author. She began her life as a classicist studying ancient Greek and has spent much of her life in Greece, especially Crete. She is a passionate wildlife conservationist and also a musician. She now lives in London and has published 12 poetry collections, 7 fiction works, and a novel. Ruth is a fellow of both the Royal Society of Literature and Zoological Society of London, and professor of poetry at King's College London, where she hosts a popular series of poetry and events, combining poetry with other areas of life and learning. In July, which is a few days from now, she will publish her second novel, Daughters of the Labyrinth, set on Crete. So, Ruth, the floor is yours. Again, with great honor it is to host you today with us.
Well, thank you so much, Rula, and thank you all these lovely contributors. I'm longing to listen to everybody's work. And it's a great honor for me to be here and your wonderful festival. In some ways, we have to thank Zoom for making this possible for us all to be together. A real symposium. So I'm going to start with, if you don't mind, this is my new novel, Daughters of the Labyrinth. And it's set in Crete, where I've lived on and off for 40 years. And I just thought I would, at the beginning of it, I have an epigram from Anne Frank, which tells you something of what it might be about. Look how a single candle can both defy and define the dark. And also a few lines which I've translated from the wonderful Greek poet George Severis, because the book, one theme is something that is lost in the sea, dropped out of sight, been covered up. I was gazing at the sea, trying to make out a ship sunk here years ago. The broken masts rolled to and fro at an angle to the deep, like tentacles or the memory of dreams. I'm not talking to you about the past. I'm talking about love. So one element of it is her relation, the narrator's relation to her mother. And in honor of Rouhana's cooking theme, here is a passage when she is interrogating her mother about something incredibly secret that she has never known. She's a woman of 62 and she has never known this. And she's meanwhile doing the cooking for supper. I support her to the kitchen, pour her a tumble of orange wine, cut up cucumber and cheese, sprinkle them with rigani, and put them in front of her to nibble while she drinks. Kefted is tonight, Mama. I choose a head of garlic and peel the white papery skin. She watches. She pokes at a cube of cucumber and sips her wine. I don't look at her. I get the mince out, slap it on a plate, chop garlic and onion, mint and rigani, break an egg, knead everything into the mince and watch it spurt through my fingers. Don't forget the cumin, she says. Damn her. So it's affectionate, that damn her. So that's just a sort of little cookery passage from the book. And I was drawing in that very much on my own mother, who died 3.5 years ago. And in this book, Emerald, that's the book I wrote when I was, after she died. And first of all, I thought I'd read one little poem from this called Astray. I mean, all of us go through this mourning. It's all different for us, but there are some things that are all the same. Astray. The wound is where the light gets in. But what is light? When your mother dies, you lose other things too. Your sense of direction. Like faceting a jewel, cutting away precious mineral to let the rays go deeper, farther. Make the orphan gem more valuable. Turn the crystal to the fire. Life, said Joseph Conrad, is a midnight ride over barely cooled lava. You might fall through the crust any minute. And I think that's speaking to the sense of utter fragility that you have in bereavement. You don't know, you're just adrift. And this is remembering her. And I think this is in Rouhana's collection, partly because there's another mention of cooking. But also she was a great iconoclast, my mother. And I had been writing a book about emeralds and all their beliefs and the alchemy of them and so on. And she was a great debunker. She liked a laugh. She hated pink, hydrangeas, marzipan, woolly thinking, and pretense. She stuck to plain tap water, wouldn't have any truck with Perrier, superstition, bling. She believed in hard fact, how and why, the daily crossword, jokes, Latin names of plants, comedy on TV, and going on when eyes and ears and muscles failed, setting her alarm for 8 a.m., even when the last nerve ends in her fingers withered. So she took an hour alone, refusing help to do up zips and buttons. What if I'd said one evening, lighting the lamp, cooking dinner, while she took in the weather forecast, I believe that emeralds come from planet Venus, are found in nests of griffins, emit the energy of Saturn, reveal the truth when placed under the tongue, and their powers are spiritual balance, wisdom, love, the reawakening of spring. I can just see the grin. Oh, Ruth. She was always telling me off for being too flowery or too poetic. She was a scientist. So this is the most recent collection of poetry, the Beethoven book. It's got a different cover in America. And I was very pleased. I mean, it's a kind of biography of Beethoven. And then there is a sort of, I hope, elegantly written sort of little mini essay, which are kind of notes for the poems afterwards. So you get the life of Beethoven in prose at the end, but also these moments of reflection, like little arias on his life as you go through. And I thought I might do a quite unknown passage of Beethoven's life after he'd given up the immortal beloved. He was very miserable. It's also artistically, and we're all interested in creating and making here, artistically, he was between two styles. He'd got to the end of his heroic style, the middle style. He didn't see what to do next. So he was very adrift and very miserable. And in his diary, he wrote during this time, 1812, 1813, "Oh God, give me strength to conquer myself. Nothing at all must fetter me to life. Oh, terrible circumstances that do not suppress my feeling for domesticity, but prevent the realization. Oh God, God, look down upon this unhappy bee. Do not let it go on much longer in this way." So he's very miserable. And this is just one episode when he was invited to spend some time in a patron's estate quite near Vienna. 3 days. We shouldn't be reading this. A self-help diary, the voice of loneliness and struggle. Nothing could stop him tipping into the abyss, afraid that everything he could create will stay locked in forever. He doesn't know where to go or what to write. He stays with a friend outside the city, a paradise of elm and oak, cool mosses, sun, and at night the blowing net of stars. But he vanishes without a word. They think he's left. 3 days go by, and the music master tracks him down to a corner of the grounds, huddled like a wolf crawled off to lick its wounds, trying, he explains, to starve himself to death. I mean, that's an extraordinary story. Okay, so this is also from that period. And during this period, he kept a diary, and he also investigated the Indian scale. He read quite a lot of Indian philosophy. It was the fashion, things were being translated. Shakuntala, the great dramatic masterpiece, had been translated into German. He read that. And it's, again, after the beloved has gone and he thinks he's giving up love. India dreams. You are even more alone. Ear trumpets don't help, but you pretend they do. Glass filled with the moon's dry wine, your shadow soft on the ceiling. A moment when every silence in the world conspires with every other. You write out notes of the Indian scale. You read Hindu mystics and Shakuntala. Copy the advice given to a faithful wife searching for a husband cursed to forget her on how to endure. On your journey through this earth, your path will be now high, now low. The traces of your feet will be uneven. Virtue will drive you on. Giving up on Eros and his blindness, you cleave to Brahma, the one bright eye, a single coin of light opening in the dark of pagodas you picture on mountain peaks in India. What we forget makes us who we are. Most of our life vanishes in the swirls of the brain's mysterious mirror, but you can't stop looking back at scarlet pearls strewn through the desert, footprints of blood, your journey away from love. And I'll finish with a book that's really perhaps the most important of what I've written, the most important theme of the moment, which is about migration. We're all from somewhere else. And this is from right at the end, and it's a reworking of a poem by Rumi, which seemed to me appropriate, given that we're based in Dubai and there's the whole world of Arabic on opening towards us. But it was actually dedicated to the man to whom I dedicate the novel, Daughters of the Labyrinth, because he was half Cretan and he rescued a forgotten and falling down synagogue in Crete. He was he was sort of half a rabbi as well, an extraordinary man. Open door after Rumi. What is not exile? The beginning is flight. The end is free flow of breath. I am inside your looking. I wait to be light in the rustle and water of wind. Cling to the surface, hold to the depths as tired eyes look forward to sleep. Why should I seek? Rusty cliffs glow in the lake, tremble of aquamarine, white mosque silhouette on the peak. A hand opens and closes like wings. You are where I am. Let go what you thought you had lost. Praise those who wake early in grief. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. Thank you so much, Ruth, for being with us and for sharing all these wonderful poems and an excerpt from your forthcoming novel as well, which, by the way, you could find the link to Ruth's novel on Indelible on the web version, not the PDF version. So thank you once again. And now we will move to Hedy. Hedy, are you there?
To write to Ruth that it was spectacular, but I can write that later.
It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And Hedy, it's a great honor having you with us today, and always. It's an honor and a pleasure. Somebody sent me a few weeks ago, they sent me a link that mentions the top 10 or the 10, I don't know. I mean, it's something about 10 Arab American poets. And yeah, it was, I don't like to use the term hierarchical, but it was about the 10 most influential or the 10 most read. And I was so happy to see that Hedy was one of them. Hedy, I will share this link with you. I've been meaning to do so, but I got busy and then it kind of slipped my mind. But Hedy's poetry is really exquisite. It's full of flowers and fragrances and lots of colors. It's so beautiful. And Hedy is also an acrostic poet because Hedy is also a painter. You do some painting yourself, right?
Yes.
And Hedy did not come from a literary background originally. Hedy studied medicine, right?
Pharmacy.
Medicine or pharmacy? Well, so this kind of shows us the interdisciplinarity of poetry, how poetry is for everyone, and how we are all, wordsmiths, alchemists in a way when it comes to words and poetry, if we kind of articulate things the way that our heart tells us to. So thank you so much for embodying that, Hedy. I will read your short bio, and then we will listen to your wonderful work. Hedy Habra is a poet, artist, and essayist. She has authored 3 poetry collections, most recently, The Taste of the Earth. She's the winner of the Silver Nautilus Book Award, honorable mention for the Eric Hoffer Book Award, and finalist for the Best Book Award, Tea in Heliopolis. Tea in Heliopolis won the Best Book Award, and Under Brushstrokes was finalist for the Best Book Award and the International Book Award. Her story collection, Flying Carpets, won the Arab American Book Award's honorable mention and was finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award. Her book of criticism, Mundus Alternos y Artísticos, en Vargas Llosa, examines the visual aspects of the Peruvian Nobel Prize winner narrative. a 16-time nominee for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net, and recipient of the Nazim Hikmat Award, her multilingual work appears in numerous journals and anthologies. So Hedy, we are so happy to hear you, and we are all ears.
Thank you for this wonderful introduction. I will ask you to do my screen sharing if possible.
All right, yeah, it's already activated, so you can go
Okay.
ahead and click it, yeah.
Okay, let me see. Okay, because one of the poems is ekphrastic and I'm projecting the image, so I decided to print the rest of the poems. I'll start with a poem titled The Apple of Granada. Some say Eve handed a pomegranate to Adam, and it makes sense to me. How can the flesh of an apple compare to the bejeweled, juicy garnets, the color of passion, hidden under its elastic pink skin, tight as an undersized glove, a fruit withholding the power to doom and exile since the dawn of time? For a few irresistible seeds, didn't Persephone lose sight of the sun for months? I mean, think of the mystery hidden in its slippery gems, of the sweetness of the tongue sealing the union with the beloved in the Song of Songs. And I succumb, despite how messy it is to crack the fruits open, invade that hive, oblivious to the indelible droplets splattering the sink, reaching beyond the marble counter all over my arms and face, as my fingertips delicately remove its inner membranes until the bowl is filled with shiny ruby red arrows. I add a few drops of rose and orange blossom water, the way my mother did, and my grandmother used to do, and her mother before her. So the next poem I'm going to read is inspired by a painting by Remedios Varo that many of you must know. We can see a woman grinding the stars in order to feed the crescent moon. And my poem, I have to move this. Oops, I lost the title here. And then
Is it this one? Oh, you're muted. Wait, let me.
Yeah, and we can see it fine on our screens,
Yeah.
Hedy.
Let me see if I can do something about the microphone. Yeah, we should be able to hear you now.
okay. Or didn't she?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. And
Yeah.
now with her children on their own, she plans their visits ahead, researching their favorite seafood dishes and entrees. She would set the table with candlelight, displaying the amethyst, turquoise, and moonstone grapes her husband once brought back from China. She remembers how she always prepared their baby food from scratch and misses nurturing them. To ensure the passing of time, she dreams of catching the waning crescent with a butterfly's net. She'd spoon feed its weakened light with a concoction spiked with crushed stars. Yes, she was an expert grinder, skilled in everything meant to please the palate. What's in a cup? To see the world in an upturned cup, watch your whole life unfolding. I will make you Turkish coffee. Let's drink it almost boiling, a ritual. Sip every drop like nectar. Turn the cup over, then leave it up to me to decipher. The coffee dregs configurations. See, there's a tree firmly rooted, twisting in pain, relentless beak staring its branches like Dante's suicides. See these parallel lines, their escapes from your torment, trips you took in dreams. See how they rise like volutes of smoke free of fear. See the fish flying in the air. This is money you will cash soon, very soon. See these narrowing paths barred at the top. Obstacles will slow you down, but good news defile endless, like a procession of ants. Now, with eyes closed, conjure up each image engraved in your cup as if it were precious crystal. When I was growing up in Heliopolis, Egypt, we used to go during the long summers nightly to the open air theaters. And I used to go most of the time with my mother when I was young. So open air cinema in Heliopolis. You used to say, Mother, let me see your face when lit by a crescent moon. Every day of the month will smile the way you do. We saw double feature movies in open air theaters. The cool breeze ran through our hair, over our necks, lifted our skirts, swayed us in a magical carpet. Tempted by vendors chanting Greek cheese and sesame breads, we often stayed sipping icy lemon granitas through replays, the lift and pause of cascading light. Characters entered our own camera obscura. We never agreed on their age. You added a few years, I wanted them closer to mine. I remember a recurrent scene fading now into a sepia cameo, where a woman, always the same, yet different, slaps a man before falling in his arms. I watched your face then as stars outlined the sky, the slight opening of the lips, the Gioconda's elegant smile you allowed yourself, befitting the sfumato of the late hours. Arm in arm, we walked home, following the trail of the moon. I just wanted to mention that this is a bygone era. Right now in Heliopolis, there are only 2 open-air cinemas and maybe a couple in Cairo.
Wow.
Do I have time to read Nargile?
Yes.
Okay, Nargile is about my father-in-law who had to rebuild his house in Lebanon during the Civil War 3 times. He moved to Tucson where his children had emigrated 40 years ago. And here is a tribute to him. Just a second.
For those who don't know what a nargile or nargila is, it is the shisha or the hookah.
Yes, when I prepared the PowerPoint, I should have started a little bit lower because I have some obstructions. So I'll just read from the paper.
Sure, we can see it though. We can see it fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't see the first part of the first.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so nargile or shisha or hookah. Trapped in his backyard, an old man thinks of cafes, backgammon games, dice thrown over inlaid wood, fingertips folded on an empty palm, hand recapturing the lost motion. He draws on his pipe, reviving crackling embers, attentive to the diva's deep vibrato, Fayrouz, Sabah, Kulthum. He breeds canaries in a shed, feeds them eggshells, slices of apple. Each dawn, he hangs cages on the trellis, overlooking the swing, waters his vegetables, precious seeds flown from far away, curled cucumbers, a special vine from Lebanon, its silken leaves fit for stuffing. Rolling patience beads made of coral, he sits for hours under the covered porch, lips stuck to the tip of the painted pipe. He thanks the Lord his grandchildren would live free in the new world. Does it matter if his soul sinks in an iridescent flask blown into eddies of smoke? Eastern voices mix with the bird song, Sabah, Kulthum, Fairuz. Carefully kindling coals with tongs, he watches arabesques, swirls emerging from underwater, imprisoned in the blown glass, bursting at the surface, deafened words of a drowned Phoenician sailor. I think I finished my 5 minutes. I won't read the last one then.
Thank you so much, Hedy. That was beautiful, so filling, so rich, as usual. Thank you for sharing these gorgeous poems with us. Thank you, Hedy. There will be time towards the end, by the way, if anyone would like to take the mic and ask any of our presenters something. Meanwhile, you could use the chat box if you would like to keep your comments there or say something to the presenter. All right, so next we will give the mic to Florence. Hello, Florence. Florence.
Hello.
Yeah, there you are. We can see you now.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Rula. And I must say, the issue of this journal just blew me away. Starting with the potato girl with the pearl earring. Every page has been absolutely fabulous. And so congratulations, everybody, and many thanks to you.
Thank you. The artist was supposed to join us as well, but she had something come up at the last minute. So hopefully we'll be hosting her during another session. So Florence,
Good.
Can I introduce you now?
Sure.
Let me introduce you. Okay, so Florence Nash was born in North Carolina, graduated from UNC, and following 20 odd years of peregrinations, settled in Durham in 1987, where she worked for Duke University Medical Center at various jobs, from research analyst in Alzheimer's to managing editor of a journal. For 16 years, she directed the poetry workshop for Duke's Ollie program. She was one of 10 emerging poets of the New South showcased at Vanderbilt's Millennial Gathering of Writers. Her poetry has been published in 2 collections, Crossing Water and Fish Music, and in a scattering of journals and anthologies. Florence, we are so happy to have you with us, and can't wait to hear your gorgeous poetry.
Thank you. I wasn't sure whether we were supposed to read our food entries.
It doesn't matter. They don't have to be the ones that are in the journal. Yeah.
Well, I will read at least one of them because I think I told you in an email. This one sort of tickles me. I was at Breadloaf Writers Conference some years ago, and they have an annual contest there in which all the attendees are invited to write a poem with exactly the same number of words as Breadloaf has been holding its conference. I believe when I was there, if I remember correctly, it was 78 years. So we had to write a 78-word poem in which the words bread and loaf had to appear sequentially, but as inconspicuously as possible. And I'm delighted to say that my entry won. And here it is. This is called Hungry. We choose plump bundled leeks, pale green and white, red peppers, fresh ground sausage. We crush garlic, melt cheeses, tear the fragrant flesh-warm bread. Loaf, roast, ragu, saute, oh souffle of desire, how the keen knife slices us. We coddle, simmer, stir, beat, lift the ladle to each other's lips and taste the blended flavors, tangy, complex, sweet. At midnight, ravening, shivering in the refrigerator's chilly glow, Again we eat with our hands, mouthful after mouthful after mouthful.
Wow, that must have been a challenge to write it.
It was fun.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. I'll read one other cooking one and then a couple of ekphrastic poems. This is Oyster Mushrooms. I'm sorry about the train. I don't know how much you can hear it in the background. There's nothing I can do about it.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
Oyster mushrooms. This morning after rain, under the leaves, the logs have come alive. Along their rotting mottled flanks, a fleshy efflorescence gleams. Stooping through the wood's wet clutch and snare, I tear the limp frills gently from the mother bark to make my wild ragout. Hours after, my fingers keep their punky faint smell, sad and delicious. I remember us naked in the rain. My husband was an artist, and I have had a lot of my life in music. I have a master's degree in music and used to perform, but don't anymore. And so I've written a lot of poems about art and about music. I'd like to read one now called Moma, Museum of Modern Art. I come here again and again, push through the turnstile, and my heart lofts like a child's into the high white space. Not quite for the paintings themselves, floating just off the wall, perfectly lit, perfectly placed, but for how the paintings lift the ceilings on their sacerdotal shoulders, hold the walls out wide for us to rise and expand. Gas clouds, novas of possibility, blooming in the white galleries. Rothko, Motherwell, Frankenthaler, Diebenkorn. I imagine they're coming to this. The years of rented garages down alleyways, the wilderness of soiled drop cloths, cigarettes and sweat and turpentine. Their spattered forearms reaching, stroking pigment glinting wet under the lights that burned all night, as, wild with vision, they chased ideas like crashing through the forest after meat, after the thing itself beyond vision, thinking to snare it in strategies of color and mass. In the museum, I move from room to room on a rainy Sunday afternoon. I escalate slowly up and down and graze among the moderns. Monumental now, legitimate, their passions curated expertly into art and already slipping into history as if their tremendous questions were answers.
Marvelous.
And one for music, if I can find it.
Uh-huh.
How's my 5 minutes doing?
Yeah, you still have
Okay,
time
this
for one
is,
more. Yeah.
Okay, ensemble. They gather like workmen with their tools, drag chairs into a circle, unfold stands, finger each peg, pluck each string, and by these routines peel away all thought but that great thing that gathers up the mind like common prayer, the door that opens in the air as the players playing rise into its light, flame in its draft, leaving behind Pentecostal quiverings, the wake of invisible flight. I used to say, if ever I should leave you behind, it would be for the way musicians breathe and mingle in that silken inward the curve of thought more intimate than skin, the overarching mind. To be by that inner tide overtaken, flooded like a plain, or like a conquered country occupied. And I'll sign off with a very brief poem.
Sure.
Oh, no?
No,
Too
you
much?
can, of course. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. This is like
One more brief
20
poem.
seconds.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay. Copperhead. This morning on the mossy path, that splits our remnant this morning on the mossy path that splits our remnant patch of wood, I came across quite suddenly, coiled where I stood, a fine big copperhead. Danger in a common script scribbled on the ground, snake, here. Respectfully, I stepped around and later thought how much I miss a world where what we have to fear appears forthright and clear as this. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Florence. Thank you. That was beautiful. We're going to go back to Michigan now and hear the lovely poetry of David James. David, are you here? You here, David?
Just had to unmute.
Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay, so David James, also known as Dr. James. His latest of 9 collections are Flip Requiem by Dos Madres Press in 2020, Surreal Expulsion, Poetry Box 2019, and If God Were Gentle by Dos Madres in 2017. And his micro chapbook, All Her Jazz, is free, fun, and printable for folding at Origami Poems Project. He lives in the woods near Saugatuck, Michigan. And he's also got an Amazon page, an Amazon author page, if anybody would like to visit it and take a look at his work. So David, welcome back. And the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be a part of this. Thanks, Rula, for putting it all together. So I'm going to read the 2 poems that are in the issue. And what my wife doesn't know, who's just off camera, is that they're both about her. She knows the poems, but she didn't know I was going to read these. The first, I do need to set up a little bit. And that is because it takes, well, I guess you'd say it steals its title from William Wordsworth's usually known as Tintern Abbey, but I wanted you to know the full title in case you didn't know it already. It's called Lines Composed a Few Miles Above Tintern Abbey on Revisiting the Banks of the Wye During a Tour, July 13, 1798. I also want to set up, in case you don't know the poem or don't remember it, a couple of the things in the poem is that he's returning after 5 years away to this rural spot. And after several years of living in the city and, you know, the burdens of his life. And then he also observes within this rural setting, the smoke coming up through the copses of the little cottages and all that are in that district. And the theme has to do with being grateful for, first of all, the experience of being there 5 years ago, but now being back there, and he's there with his sister, and he's getting all philosophical about how this will nurture him and her as the years go on. So I flip it over a little bit on its side, and my poem, by the way, it's in Flip Requiem, which Rula mentioned. My poem is called Lines Composed 750 miles west of Charlotte, North Carolina, upon hearing of President Trump's scripted plea for unity drowned out by the raucous crowd chanting, "Lock her up," October 26, 2018. With nods to and a last line from Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. I'm watching smoke wander upward through its pyramid of black briquettes, hover like a parched fountain slowly stirred in circles amidst sluggish air. Then search for currents to usher it past shadow into sky. Such languid flight belies the damage that makes the meal, the ravaged meat gracing kitchen table, the surgery that shreds it down to gristle. Mean indulgence, this living. Mean, I say, yet still will savor the meal's completion, then linger after outside until a secret light bleaches our little forest midnight white, splashing and gowning the margins and walling in the yard. When the inverted vase, now pulsing red, collapses to extrude its flapping tongues and discharge sparks like red rain, I look up, anticipating what must come next. But inside, already lamplit, through windows focused like tall rectangular spectacles on a quiet task, I see my wife in her chair, reading, the gray cat curled against her legs on the recliner's upraised stool. Unaware, her carelessness propels a bolt of pleasure to my brain. Even Wordsworth, revisiting pastoral cottages after 5 years of worldly weariness, couldn't voice such contentment or link me more interminably to his life and food for future years. Doom be damned. The forces fencing this stolen moment shine it forward, sure, but also illuminate the numinous now that's felt in the blood and felt along the heart.
I was muted. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, David.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this other one, it's way lighter. In fact, it's called Love Buzz, and it needs no setup. Love Buzz for Susie. The coffee's made for what? The 3,500th time, give or take, for a decade in 4 months. Love Buzz. We joke, but that nails it. And not just the coffee. Lord, the buzz she brews in me. Nights, too much streamed TV, then the old novel I'm reading dips for the 5th time. We say click when we spoon. The 10-year ritual, still a perfect fit. Although now it's 15 years, so maybe I should update it. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. That was such a beautiful poem. And this is also in Indelible, this issue, of course. Thank you. So before we move back to North Carolina, we want to go to Chicago. Claude, are you here?
Yes. Good morning from Chicago.
Good morning. And Claude Barbre, PhD, LP, is Distinguished Full Professor at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. He is the course lead coordinator of the Psychodynamics Orientation and lead faculty in the Child and Adolescent Studies. Dr. Barbre served for 12 years as executive director of the Harlem Family Institute, a New York City school-based psychoanalytic training program. Author of prize-winning articles, books, and poetry, Dr. Barbre is a 5-time recipient of the International Gradiva Award for outstanding contributions to psychoanalysis and the arts. He is currently a board member and training supervisor at the Chicago Center for Psychoanalysis, CCP, and in private practice in Chicago. And Professor Claude Barbre is a wonderful and exceptional poet as well. So Claude, you are very welcome, and we would love to hear your poems.
Thank you very much. Let's see if I can.
Will you be reading Pear Relish, the one in Indelible?
Yes, I'm going to read.
Okay.
This is a poem that's in the Indelible, this issue. Um, I was reading Robert Haas, who told the story of uh, of um, uh, share the haiku from a 19th century Japanese writer, Isha, that reads, "The man pulling radishes pointed my way with a radish." And I always like that poem. The encounters with other people, sometimes are these kind of quirky moments, as the man pointing the directions with a radish. I was recently coming back from downtown Chicago in an Uber, talking to a driver from Morocco, and we started talking about recipes from our families. And we ended up, when I got to my destination, we ended up sitting in the car for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, talking about the mystery of recipes in families, and the way we celebrate lives, and at the same time how much we mourn the loss of the creator of the recipes. And we talked a great deal about our families and histories. In a way, it was an encounter with a man pointing my way with a radish. And this poem, Pear Relish, I actually mentioned the making of pear relish in my family in South Carolina and North Carolina, growing up as a child, and just the whole ritual of the creation of canning and the canning seasons that was a major part of just the culture that I grew up in. So the name of this poem is Pear Relish. At 95, my grandmother would wake when daylight tasseled just beneath the east, enfolded morning glimmers like the gold of corn silk tuft inside their green cocoons, dew-husked by dawn, and rise the songs of birds, compelled from ales and shallow drowse to dress and wade into a garden's rumpled rose, where sunbows garnished gloves of rabbit ears, and early shows of overspreading chard in twisted canted grafts of butter beans, along the ochre caps a white-tailed doe had missed when startled by unwanted sounds, and zagged beyond clematis into woods. With care, she would survey the planted plots, each patch like cruel duvets suffused with down, and stand hip deep in mint and borage blooms. The hushed remands of ruffled lilies hued with sepals bowed chatoyant in their poised ephemera, to work the weeds away, her small arthritic hands still stronger than the men she could outlive again with ease. By middle morn, she'd pick a basket load of ready yields, succession herbs and fruit, but always tarried by the kefir pears, as though she'd wandered into a salon of artists famous for their pear tableau, conspicuous with commentary nods and calyx wrinkles creased along her brow. Her reaching arms like maestro trained batons that tap backstage, anticipating how an oboe A will tune an orchestra before the pause that falls to overtures replete with rondo themes for harvest picks and tempos timed for kitchen alchemy. And home again, the screen door propped to porch, she'd follow recipes for relish droops, with canning troops incarnate with reports on juliennes of cinnamon and cloves, and tips on wedging unripe poems to mince in sausage grinders given to enmesh the coarse and verdant crisp of beady flesh that raw in oblong shapes, both hard and soft, resembled faces that her features made. a toughened guise grown softer by the years, though always hard inside from life's travails. And soon to add the cider vinegar, a touch of turmeric to gild the grail, would bring to boil the auric bouillon mash, in sync Alsayegh with summer's repertoire of roused cicadas' late crescendo surge that thrummed the last ingredients to add: sugar, 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 spice. Into the jars and ceiling domes to blend would settle until cooled to ochre pulp. The fetes where spooned ambrosia would tell if all had gone according to the plan. And usually it went with everything, accompanied with grateful dialects of incoherent praise, with mouths too full to say what happiness it was to taste. Don't look back or cows will lick your cheeks, my grandmother would say and send a wink, an idiom equation of Lot's wife who turned to salt and salt the cattle like. Then satisfied, the dishes done, she'd sit with nudging cricks of which she never once complained, though pained enough to plainly see, and rock the easy chair to Lawrence Welk.
Beautiful, beautiful, imagistic, heartfelt. Thank you so much, Claude.
I'll read this last one, short little one that I wrote recently.
Sure.
And it's kind of like getting out of the quarantine. It's a memory of traveling along the coast road of Maine. It's called Coast Road Rest Stop. North of redbud winter chills, the snowshoe hair is still beneath the paper birch. Blueberry bees lift nectaries and shake the sunstone pollen dusk with tattered wings. Deer mice peek through cool debris of lilac dusk and sleek beyond where owls blink. New grass moon is breaking ice and nestled like an egg the geese have nestled dry. The road ahead, a crease unmapped that plovers skim when spindrift sped and light recedes. Whose turn to turn the key, resume our old romance with travel talk and no goodbyes. We linger sized by shadowlands, illumined in brief and windward hints of starlit surf. The way a fisher's pail has sea enough to tell the moon is full. You hold my heart.
Thank you so much. Lovely, lovely, very melodious. Thank you, Claude.
Thank you very much.
So we will take a 5-minute stretch break, filling up cups of teas or whatever you're drinking, and then we'll be back for the second half of the poetry launch. All right, so see you in 5. You can just stay, but if you want, mute or remove your cameras or whatever, but just keep it. Don't leave yet. I mean, don't leave the Zoom.
Claude, love your work. Always love your work.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No, I find it so powerful and so well judged. I mean, it's rare that I don't know, but I'm guessing it's rare that people write in that kind of way today and do it successfully, you know, and you do. It's just wonderful.
Yes, the last point I was trying to get out of iambic pentameter.
No, but I'm just trying
to write. I find myself writing a lot in the five lines, but I'm trying different styles.
No, but I mean, you got, I think, and that's one thing that strikes home, apart from the beauty of the conception, is the music, the musical kind of balance and judgment there. You know, it comes off so beautifully.
Yes.
And I mean, I think that's what makes it so enjoyable to listen to and read, you know.
Thank you very
Claude,
much.
do you have a collection out? I didn't hear that in the
I'm
introduction.
working on one right now. I've been a collection that my wife says it should be called Natural History. I think of Robert Haas's collection called Field Guide, and I've been writing a lot of poems about the natural world. So I'm almost to a place that I would send off for a collection.
Right. Well, let me know. Please do. Let me know when it's out, because I'd like to get it and read it. And your work resonates with me a lot all the time. I've listened to your work, and I think it's fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's very encouraging for me to continue working. Thank you. And I'm really enjoying.
One more thing.
Yes.
I have a comment. I just want to say I find it very hard to sometimes listen to long poems or even read them. I find some poets are just really gifted at the longer styles. So I will say that that's really incredible that you were able to write such poems so long in length and yet keep everybody's attention and nothing seems extraneous. So that's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very encouraging. I really have enjoyed listening to all the recipes from all the poets today. Just to hear I feel like I'm continuing my conversation with encounters with others about these worlds, and some of them are very recognizable. So I thank everyone.
Can I ask you
I'm
a
just
question?
still thinking about that glove imagery. Hedy's poem. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. No, you go ladies first, of course. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I just have to say, I love that pomegranate. That is an awesome imagery. Really, it's so vivid with the color, the red, and I'm picturing this tightness around the fruit and then it bursting open, and such evocative meaning there that you can experience sensually, physically, but also emotionally, spiritually, just very all-encompassing. Beautiful, Hedy.
Thank you so much.
The Nargile poem.
Thank you, guys.
The Nargile poem was so atmospheric because I've read all of that period in parts of Egypt in books, but you really you color it atmospherically. It's a very kind of rose tinted. My assumption is it's a very rose tinted period in certain parts of the Arab world. Compared with later, in other words, compared with later.
Yes.
And I mean, I've always heard stories of people who used to live in different parts of the world, of the Middle East, before the really tragic parts hit home. And it always comes across as a place that was, unique in some ways. Had a blend of different parts of the world without being disjointed or catastrophic. I've recently been reading some histories of Lebanon because I'm working on a Lebanese verse novel. And there's a period in the 60s and 70s under certain leaders in Lebanon where, from my reading, which I don't, it's just a beginning reading, you see that the world was, that particular small world was so much more successful than everything that came after it. There was a window where things went quite nicely, and then everything turned to crap in the Middle East, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to capture in my first two books, in short stories and poetry, but I addressed the aftermath of violence in my last book, in my The Taste of the Earth. Although there are also lots of medallions that bring back what you mention, whether it is in Egypt or in Lebanon, but it also addresses the changes and the devastation. So, but we have to keep in mind, of course, you're much younger, Omar, but those of us who grew up in Heliopolis, Egypt, keep on remembering that it's not in our imagination, but it was amazing. And at the same time, I used to go in the summer, spend my vacations in the mountains of Lebanon. So we had the best of both worlds for so many years. And then I studied pharmacy, got married in Lebanon, all of that during the period that you mentioned. I got married in the 70s. So up to 75, 76. Actually, what can I say? It was, although it is a bygone era, we always want to hope that someday something is going to happen. And it's going to, you know.
Well, I mean, the Switzerland of the Middle East phrase I just learned recently is from Lamartine, the French poet. So I think he was describing the alpine scenery, the mountain scenery in Lebanon being like alpine scenery, but it's also of course being used for what you're talking about, the Switzerland of the Middle East. You know, this kind of unique blend or formula that actually worked for a small amount of time, but then exploded.
It certainly is working for the Swiss with the 3 different languages together, but also it was denominated as the Paris of the Middle East.
Yeah.
But, you know, 17 civilizations have left remains, architectural treasures. So it's such a wonderful country. It will never lose that, you know.
Inshallah, I hope so. I hope so, unless the bottom falls out completely, you know. But well, I was going to say that I've recently read a book by, I'm sure you know it, Hedy, Kamal Salibi, called The House of Many Mansions. It's a book from the early 80s, but it's been reprinted till today. And it's about the history of the conceptions of Lebanon, the way modern Lebanon looked back to find a way of defining itself. So you have, you know, certain people who are calling Lebanon the new Phoenicians. You have the more Arab nationalist side. You know, you have these different conceptions of Lebanon. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the competition there is quite healthy, but unfortunately it can lead to bad things in the material reality, you know, so.
Well, right now it's reaching the pit. I mean, it can't be worse. So all we can say is that we're just hoping that we always live hoping there's a miracle, but I believe in the resilience and the brightness and the personality of the Lebanese people, because all over the world, wherever they've been, and those who are still in Lebanon, there is such a great percentage who are working. And maybe in the dark, but one day something is going to happen.
Well, I think the Lebanon is a wonderful mix of kind of talking about Darwin and Freud earlier. I mean, the Lebanese are so great at adaptation, but at the same time, if you're looking at the structure as a whole, the individuals are so talented. There's such a human capital here, but there's also a grandiose denial as well. You know, there's also this there is this kind of blinkeredness about. I mean, not the people, but the people who are responsible for the mess we're in can be a bit blinkered, I think, a bit, or in denial. I mean, that's a compliment, because if they're not in denial, then they're much worse than being in denial.
I love the poem that you wrote since you've been in Lebanon this week. It's a short poem. I wish you would read it to our audience. Maybe not today, but whenever. It's a short poem, but it says a lot about you going back to Lebanon and your feelings.
Yeah, I wrote that on my first day back. I wanted just to note down, you know, some impressions. But I'm going to read today, I think, 3 from the contribution to the issue. Lighthearted. And, sorry,
Ahmad. We will need to start the second section now. So, Ahmad, if you want, you can go first, if you've got the poems ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So
yeah.
let me get your bio. Okay. So we still have Ahmad, Lucy, Paul, Gottfried, Carole, Maura, Ralph, Deborah, and Florence. Okay, so Omar Sabbagh is a widely published poet, writer, and critic. He has published 5 poetry collections, 2 novellas, and much short fiction, some of it prize-winning. A study of the oeuvre of Professor Fiona Sampson, Reading Fiona Sampson, A Study in Contemporary Poetry and Poetics, was published with Anthem Press in July 2020. He has published scholarly essays on modernist as well as contemporary poets. Many of these works are collated in To My Mind or Kinboats, Essays on Literature. He also has 2 books forthcoming, namely Morning Lit, Portals After Alia, a forthcoming book of poetry and prose, and Why Not, a collection of short fictions. He holds a BA in PPE from Oxford, 3 MAs, all from the University of London in English Literature, Creative Writing, and Philosophy, and a PhD in English Literature from KCL. Presently, he teaches at the American University in Dubai, where he is Associate Professor of English. Omar,
Thanks, Rula.
welcome again.
Thanks, Rula. Thanks. I should say that Why Not is not really gonna be published yet. I'm aiming to get it accepted. But the 3 pieces I read from today, which are in the Indelible issue, and it is a wonderful issue, Rula, are all in my forthcoming book for my daughter, Alia, Morning Lit, Portals After Alia, which should be coming out in March next year with Cinnamon Press. The first piece is A Glass of Water, and it's a more serious, I suppose, serious tone poem. The second piece, Education, is slightly sarky. I'll explain why I wrote that and when I wrote that. And the third piece I want to read is a prose vignette, which kind of combines irony with serious emotion. And so A Glass of Water, I tend to write very quickly. I tend to write in one fell swoop on an impulse. Sometimes it works, sometimes I'm just writing crap. That's the way I live. You know, I'm erratic like that. But sometimes I hit the note rightly or right, and I write a successful poem. So A Glass of Water is me reflecting back on a period of time that is not fully still clear to me in terms of its dynamic. So I'll read A Glass of Water. There is something about this man that makes what it is that's on the cusp of happening timely as the tide of what has been. It's frightful to know the future as well as this. What was meant to be a raised tablet comes in the shape of a cage, tall and sure, and as though to the measure of some mosaic law. It's not surprising to feel the floor beneath your feet beat to the same sad tune heard before in the mind of a man with no memory anymore. And though the melodic line is piece and part of a hackneyed vein, blue beyond blue beyond blue, there are still a batch of things this man wants to understand. How was it such a mass of workaday people went gulled and guyed by a fabulous secret without a window like this? And how, fooled by the way things might have been, how is it they agreed to join and dream like this? Droplets in the glamour of a glass of water. It's sure none would ever have agreed to sip themselves. And then, what of the water itself? It sees, of course, hears, goes touch to the lips, but without a scent. But when has water ever talked? When spoken of the things that have stalked its clarity, coloring its whiteness or lack thereof? And if not, dyeing its wide largesse, the emptiness, with the slur of some storm of starless darkness. It's strange to see a score like this. 0-0, of course, as it ever was, the staves denuded. And strolling along the staggered lines of this book of sad and elastic music, the black marks seem in such a way they disappear in the weave of what was meant by the composer. The second piece, which is a bit more sarky, I wrote in a bar under the impression that someone was making fun of me for being an education snob, which is true, I am. You know, very proud of my reading and so on and so forth. And I think for good reason, because I do believe the mind is a muscle. So just like a stronger arm and a stronger mind is possible, that, and also that symbolic intellectual goods transcend, unlike material goods, which always end. So there's that element of the validity of believing in, you know, the purpose and the betterment of educating yourself, but also being a bit sarcastic because it's true. When one is a snob in that way, or at least I hope not a snob, but one values something that other people deride, it's worth making fun of the situation. So this is called Education. I wrote it literally in about 10 or 15 minutes in a bar, and it came off quite nicely. I'm hoping it reads well. Education. When the carrion birds peck and squabble, when they build the amateurs of their essays, where all the organs of the slain are discussed, there are always one or two of them who think themselves vultures better than the rest, who come off like snobs because as they eat, still parrying away the others, who are also eating down from the sky's fluent freedom the meat of the dead. They give themselves these airs. These uppity few are so proud of their education, about knowing what to do in all situations. The others waiting in the gorging queue are put off, strangely, from their bloodied food. They feel it's unfair, and they seem to resent the one or two carrion birds who lend their bloody, picky work the sheen and blend of some endeavor of bettering. They want what they do, animals at the last, to be known for what it is. No sense of class or of classiness should ever be permitted the look of the work of a good, fast, famished carrion bird. The uneasy question that seems to rumble from their lips while spilling the munched at gruel of dead flayed meat, mixed with the fandangos of a bird's saliva, is a question about effrontery. The chutzpah of those few birds, the sheer uppity gumption. The sheer uppity gumption. Who do they think they are and how better? And in the minds, and in their minds alone, those who seem so effortlessly superior are actually the only truly humble birds left in the annals of that famished tribe. Bereft now of the old scholastic cue, the way that birds once upon a time knew what they knew, these few birds of dead attack, so attacked, can only keep their silence, faced by major fiat. The last piece, sorry if I want to read, if I have time, is a prose vignette dedicated to my father and my daughter from Muhammad and Hedy Sabbagh. Slightly ironic here and there, slightly serious, just a quick vignette about a ritual that has become a rite in the home when I'm with my parents, the grandparents. So chocolate gifts. She is getting cannier now, savvier. Small round pellets, colored across the rainbow, hold little loads of sweetened chocolate to be crunched, rolled around the tongue, savored. But there is more to the sweet gift than this, for it is the cordoned off domain of only Jiddo's care. At first, her grandfather drove the monopoly for self-seeking reasons, passions. It wasn't meant to be, in truth, an exemplar of the supposed Marxist laws of production, whereby concentration and centralization of the source of supply are groping, babbling tendencies one can't resist in a market economy evidenced by the periodic fall in profits. No, nothing so salacious, tasteless. It was, in fact, a quite natural progression in a place as warm and warmed as this, where power is identical with its better, authority. No Gramscian hegemony achieved by co-option, a surreptitious cahoots forming coercion, makes sense here. The hegemon is a father and grandfather, and fills these roles without a single stagey mask. The tenderness, as it appears, melts all hearts, so that the large, wide living room where this daily rite is performed starts to flow again with rivers of blood. The oaken wine given time to breathe, mature. The oaken wine of goodness in the process of being groomed. The chocolate lies hidden in the cabinet, too high for Alia's reach. That said, she now knows where the stash is, stashed. So, by the third or fourth day here, staying with my parents, it was not just a case of grand surprise in the clenched grip of her jiddo. It was rather her pacing forth to tug at this old and loving man's stone-colored abaya, tugging him at the knees with her right hand, while swinging her left, her waylaid left, to point towards the deep mahogany cabinet just round the corner of her tugging, the while making small chimp sounds of adorable appeal. The operation of chocolate gifts now has two stages, phases, two dovetailing parts to what is a darling maneuver. First, the call, the imperative call from the toddler, wise too. Then, the grand effort beneath an effortless smile of rising from the deep seat of the couch and goose-stepping for comic relief round to the cabinet. My daughter follows my father amused, but still with a brows gunning intent on the prize. Before being gifted a small pellet of sweet, sweet chocolate, she must name the color in the open hand. She always does. Thus, demand is sated. And so, this is how the generations, once again, hook and latch onto each other in the rooting ways of a family tree whose soil is love. The sweet gift, the gift of sweets, work like a chiasmus thus, whose turnstile between the two opposed conversions is this smitten middle, father, son. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Omar. These are beautiful poems.
Thanks.
Nurture of fatherhood.
Doing my best.
Thank you. All right, next, Lucy. Hello, Lucy. Lucy Holm is originally from Kent in the UK and has a BA in English Literature and Language from Manchester University. She moved to Cork City in 2013, where she lives with her husband and 3 small children. Since May 2020, her work has been featured in OBL 14, Poet Head, La Picholette de Barca, Burnt Breakfast, Porridge and Drike, and most recently in Opia Lit, One Hand Clapping, The Honest Ulsterman. She has work forthcoming in the Liminal Review, Wrongdoing, Crossways, Tirnagog, and the Hecate anthology Birth. Lucy?
Hi.
Very warm welcome to you. This is Lucy's first time with Indelible. So we're all ears.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me, Rula. And it's just amazing to be in such formidable company. So I'm a little bit nervous, so hopefully it'll go okay. But I'm going to start with reading a poem from somebody else, a poet called Elaine Beckett. And I think that the poem really speaks to sort of the twin themes of this issue of Indelible, of nurture and food. And it also, on a personal note, reminds me that sometimes it's okay to use simple images to convey something quite profound. So I'll read this first, if I may. So this is called Thursday. When the dusk comes in as quiet as this, as low as this, as dense as this, like your whole world has gone back to where it began. And you wonder how you got into this mess, the kind of mess you cannot see an end to, as if it may already have ended very badly. And all you can hear is the sound of your own name, spoken deep inside your own head. It is probably best to step back from whatever kind of brink you imagine you have reached and think about something else, something small and practical, like boiling an egg. So that's that one.
Lovely. That's lovely.
Okay, thanks. And I'm going to read Diagonal Lines, which is in this issue of Indelible, and a little bit of background. When I finished university, I took a train from London to Nice, and I never went home again for another 12 years. I just sort of discovered the yachting industry and ended up working at sea for 12 years. So I spent a lot of time in different countries all over Europe. I did a circumnavigation, and a lot of my poetry is sort of based on that feeling of being sort of an other in a different place. So this poem started out as a bit of a tribute to Barcelona. I lived there in my 20s. I was based on a boat that was there. And yeah, it's just sort of about that heady sensory time with the smells and sounds of Barcelona. It's really a city I love. I returned there actually. I had a trip planned and I was pregnant with my eldest daughter, who is now 7. So it sort of went from a tribute to Barcelona to a tribute to my daughter, Este. So this is Diagonal Lines. I escape at midnight from Parc del Forum, feet swollen in black Converse, taxis red lit. Follow a diagonal line to the man-made shore, where concrete steals angles and torn flags flutter the alleyways in hidden Barceloneta. sun-grazed barrio, former Elaine, kissed by the filthy Bessos River, created anew. The air is cuttlefish and guava, pimenton bomba, crimson sangria, and pitch ink purple baby squid, the bloodburst of tendons softened with lemon. As the city sweeps downhill from Tibidabo to marble tables on scuffed sidewalks, counterbars with amber panes invite me to devour salt cod croquetas and fried quail eggs, honey glazed chorizo slick with oil, artichokes firm to touch in pale golden coats. I squeeze my pregnant belly into a gap beside the door, beckon the waiter in white jacket and tie, shout my order above the din of old men, age-withered pescadors speaking Catalan, language meant only for each other, not for me. I was always a tourist in Barcelona, lived in cramped flats on airless alleys, balconies festooned with clothes like garlands, skated the boardwalk, drank under sand sculptures. I was here before, a life ago, less jaded. Now, clear-headed, I doze on a rooftop terrace, hand rested on taut, stretched stomach skin. Now, I pound pavements at midday instead of night, floored by the heat, full yet hollow with exhaustion, rage stifled at ill-timed nausea, at calendars. People die from isolation, but it can also be a choice. Those who hemmed me in departed in a way that you will never do. You who shares this body, who sends me outside disorientated, going left when before it always felt right. This time around, I take no artful shots of graffitied walls, the scaffolded Sagrada Familia, an ice-frosted wine glass at La Boqueria, glistening tomatoes wrinkled by the sun. With my camera stashed, a moped chained to pistachio-coloured railings goes unrecorded. The instant fixes of my blithe 20s forever altered. For I am too tired for tourism, for music at 1 a.m, for fitting in. Today, I received the city's gastronomic gifts in quiet company, stopped to savour each taste, bathe in its generous light.
Beautiful. That was marvelous, Lucy. Thank you so much.
I got time just for one more.
One of the best places where you can eat.
Barcelona.
Yes.
Oh, it's amazing. I hope to go back there again soon.
What I really liked about this issue is that there were so many poems taken from trips. So it kind of took us on a little tour around the world, not just with the taste, but like it was a bit holistic in all the sensations. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucy. And next, Dr. Gottfried Heuer. Dr. Gottfried Maria Heuer is a Jungian training psychoanalyst and supervisor, Neo-Reichian body psychotherapist and trainer, some 40 years of clinical practice in London, including work in many European countries, including Russia, North, Central, and South America, Africa, and Australia. Independent scholar with some 70 papers published in 7 languages. His books include 10 Otto Gross Congress Proceedings, Sacral Revolution by Routledge 2010, Sexual Revolutions, Psychoanalysis, History, and the Father by Routledge 2011, Russian edition in 2017, and Freud's outstanding colleague / Jung's twin brother, The Suppressed Psychoanalytic and Political Significance of Otto Gross, also by Routledge 2017. And he is also a published graphic artist, photographer, sculptor, and poet. So Dr. Gottfried Heuer, this is a great honor having you with us today. Dr. Heuer also has some paintings in this new issue of Indelible, so poetry and paintings, and today you will be sharing with us the poems.
Yeah. Congratulations for your achievement and of this wonderful, impressive issue, plus all the previous ones, which I got to know. Just in case, my poem is called Rembrandt and the Robin in the Age of Aquarius. Just in case some of you don't know what a robin is it's a very tiny bird. The male is red-breasted as this one, very small, very territorial, and the most incredibly beautiful songbird. So, my poem, Rembrandt and the Robin in the Age of Aquarius. I am uncertain whether I'll be able to pull this off, as they say, or are the two I have in mind just too disparate? Yet, after all, so here it goes. There is a self-portrait by Rembrandt when he was old, and he looks at me across the time of some 400 years. Behind him on the wall are two yet disparate circles, segments, somewhat back to back. Those two halves, the general understanding as to what they might mean is a reference to the painter Giotto some 400 years before. When asked to prove his artistic skills, he complied by drawing a perfect circle with a single fluent movement. There it is, the anecdote speaks of a single circle, yet in Rembrandt's painting, there are two parts of it, disparate, or there is a certain place by the River Thames, not exactly a peninsula, but somewhat rounded by the vegetation growing on the shore. The rivers just beyond, brambles, trees, and bushes almost form a rounded alcove. This is where I and my beloved enjoy to sit. And each time we go there, a tiny robin comes to be with us. Well, I guess we are sitting in his parlor. We feed him crumbs from biscuits, having learned that he likes them really, really small. But that's not all. He looks at us, seems to be speaking eye to eye. And to see us even better, he leaps about, then flies all around us. Yes, in a circle which he completes in a single fluent movement. And not just once, again and yet again. No longer do we need to ask, will the circle be unbroken? As this at last, finally, is the age of Aquarius, since the last winter solstice just some 6 months ago. We are the ones we have been waiting for, and we are one. The two halves have been joined. The circle is complete in a single fluent movement. Not just the two of us, but you, and you, and you too, and you. We are so many. My second poem is a very brief one called Now This Is Love, or Love in the Time of COVID-19. Me, waiting for my beloved just some 20 yards outside the shop. Under COVID, only one of us goes inside. And as she comes out, stopping by the exit to disinfect her hands from one of those dispensers, she then fills her hands with some extra disinfectant, carries it over to where I stand to let it flow into my hands, reaching out to her. Nearby, a woman sees us, calling out, "Now this is love." "Thank you," I turn to her, "and bless you," as all three of us smile as one. Thank you very much.
Love them. Thank you so much, Gottfried. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Maura. Maura. Oh, yeah. There is Maura. Okay, let me just get the bio ready. All right, Maura Hai, who's joining us today from North Carolina. Maura Hai was born in Wales. As a child, she moved with her family from country to country and then taught in secondary schools in Nigeria before emigrating to the United States. She now lives and works as an editor and translator in North Carolina. A chapbook, The Garden of Persuasions, was published by Jakar Press, and other poems have appeared in online and print journals and anthologies. Maura, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. This is such an international group. I feel we've gathered from all over the world on this through your wonderful journal.
Thank you all for being part of it.
Yeah, and then the theme is one that unites us all, and it's you know, I was just thinking of food as a kind of language, quite literally our mother tongue. So I was quite moved by that. There are 3 poems by me that bring up the notion of food or the gathering of food. But as I was listening to Ruth Padel talking about Crete, reminded me of a poem that I wrote following some archaeological work I did in Azoria, Crete, and the Kavusi project, which was led by Donald Haggis, a professor at the University of North Carolina. He very graciously allowed me to just work on it as a volunteer. So this is a poem that was published in the Southern Review a few years ago, and it follows the course of the day. So listen out for the food. It does appear. 1. Oh, the title is An Archaeology of Now and Then. Early morning. Little rabbit jawbone, 3 teeth. Where are your other bones? Crumbled and dispersed under the shadow of the olive tree in the shadow of the hill, before the sun has crept over the trenches and tumbled stones, where the dirt is still cool and secret, and the battered wheelbarrows wait alongside the tools and rubber buckets, before the trucks have unsettled the dust and broken the silence, which is not silence, but the shrill of crickets and the rustle and scrape of grass stalks, leaves blown against each other. What will the stones say today? Work, river, fire, wall. Will the curve of the rim of a clay cup remember the potter's thumb? So before noon. The pick hoe sings tock, tock, clang, thunk, knocking all day at the dry dirt, loosening earth, rock, potsherds, root and bone. Who's there? Who's there? Generations of weather and seasons, fire and abandonment, compacted like the leaves of a book one can read backward from the soil tip. Dirt and stone fly up into the wheelbarrow, which jerks back to the trench where panful by panful, soil is scattered and brushed and packed into place, each shard and stone eased back where it will be until the grass seeks water again under the wall. Noontime. Here's water and olive pits, and some crumbs from the plastic bag for the earth, the ants, whatever persists in this sun-scoured acropolis. Over among the trees in the narrow gully, a couple of the Greek laborers drink their coffee. Here and there, yawns and small talk in the scant shade. If the dead came upon us now in the ruins of their burned village, we would have no defense, no refuge. Afternoon. After the catastrophe, we fled. Had we failed to propitiate the gods? The town has gone downhill, fine houses strung all along the coast road between Heraklion and Agios Nikolaos. If you want to know how far the sea is, ask the spearmaker, ask the woman sorting greens. How wide? Ask the importer of fine pots, the shopkeeper whose son emigrated to America. The song of the cicadas washes over us like surf. Our terraces of beans and squash have grown up and wild capers, bee brows only, the same bees, thirsty for nectar. Beautiful night, Nichte. Shards that never dreamt of being whole dream. First there was the order of clay, which for the olive jar, which for the cup. Then the matrix of dirt, each layer its own era. Then sieves, plastic bags, labels, boxes, a place on a shelf in a bound book. The difference between looking and seeing, says the photographer, is memory. As the lizard who lurks between the stones, eyes half open, remembers. We see all the stars tonight. We see you asleep in your safe beds. It also remembers what Hedy was talking about in the archaeological remains that are still there in Lebanon and will be there forever. If I have time for just one short poem, which brings me straight back into Britain, actually, in Cambridge, a sense of the memory of food and of the gathering of it. Man among blackberries. As cemeteries go, it was pleasant with its yew trees and rough cut grass. What grief there'd been among the headstones had long since passed. But still there was that unquiet quiet among the ranks of the dead, and a sense that the ground was deeded forever to them and the absolute. I felt the life in my own step, the skin and muscle of my own body. So the man frightened me, stripped as he was to his waist and doing something in the bushes. When he turned, I saw a stick and halted. Then saw he was just picking blackberries, leaning into the brambles, careful of their prickle and scratch, as he gathered sweetness to himself, treat memories of earlier foragings. The birds twittered as if nothing else was about to happen, and nothing did. He was a homeless person, and he was just wandering in the cemetery when he saw these things. Quite sad.
That was such a it was a different poem, you know. Loved it. Thank you so much, Maura, for sharing these. And of course, we'd love to see you again in future issues, food or not.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Next, Deborah Kaufman. Deborah, can I see Deborah? Not yet. Oh, yes, now I can see you, Deborah.
There I am.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi.
Deborah Kaufman is the author of the poetry collections God Shattered, Delicate Thefts, The Next Moment, and A Certain Light, as well as 3 chapbooks and many monologues and short plays. She is working on her 5th full-length play and poetry collection. Her most recent poems appeared in Poetry East, North Carolina Literary Review, Tar River Poetry, and Triggerfish Review. She produced Illuminated Dresses, a series of monologues by women in 2019 at Burning Coal Theater in Raleigh, North Carolina. Deborah, we are very happy to have you with us tonight. This morning for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I see there's a couple of fellow Midwesterners here, Claude and David. I grew up in the Midwest and rural, so I'm going to start with my poem, The Farm, 1959. If you've been on an old farm, they're not romantic. They're workaday places and dangerous places. The Farm, 1959. Flies cling to the kitchen screens while Grandma Naomi stews tomatoes. The uncles are out doing chores. My job is to not get underfoot. My mother left me here, but they have no games, no puzzles, no books except an old Bible. The barn, dark, cool, fragrant with hay, is no place to play, Naomi says, shooing me outside. Don't touch the electric fence or go anywhere near the sows. They'll devour a girl your size. Don't wander into the cornfield. You may never come out. Mind, there are rats in the corn crib. The kittens under the porch will scratch. My legs aren't long enough to make the porch swing. I count to 100 by twos. Grasshoppers whiz by, grasshoppers whiz by. Finally, the uncles come, caked with mud. They take off their work boots and caterpillar caps, and we walk in together. Dinner is at noon. Ham, green beans, beets, thick milk, peach pie for dessert. But first we must wait for Grandpa to stop praying. On and on he goes. The window fan whirs. I close my eyes. Let the buzzing carry me far away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Yeah,
Your reference to the caterpillar hats took me back to my birthplace. I was born in Peoria, Illinois.
You were? Oh my
yeah.
God. Oh, that's right.
And so many people in my family worked at Caterpillar.
That was a good job.
Uh-huh.
That was a good job. Yeah. Do I have time for one more? Or?
Yes, you have time for one more. Sure.
The next one is a poem I wrote for my grandson who's 15 and just trying to figure things out. It's called Sheltering, Day 170. In the months since your last visit, your voice registers an octave lower. Your rangy bones have stretched another inch. Your hair has grown long and lustrous. When you toss a lock back, you are half prince, half colt. You worry about people being shot in the street, the ever-rising virus, your parents' marriage, the future of this burning, flooding planet. You wonder what you can do, who you will become. To grow requires feeding, fried chicken, mounds of ice cream. To know yourself requires reading, inventing, risking, and time, a lifetime of questioning. I wish I had answers. I want everything I tell you to be true, as in level, as in honest, though I myself could use a dollop of faith. None of the old stories work anymore. Can you believe we may be better than we seem? I see simmering in you and shimmering. You look deep into the glass. Finish your milk in one long gulp.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Okay, next we have Paul Jones.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Paul Jones has published poetry in many journals, including Poetry, River Heron Review, Red Fez, Broadkill Review, as well as in cookbooks, in travel anthologies, and in a collection about passion, in a collection about love. Recently, he was nominated for 2 Pushcart Prizes and 2 Best of the Web Awards. His chapbook is What the Welsh and Chinese Have in Common. A manuscript of his poems crashed on the moon's surface in 2019. For more, you can visit Paul Jones's website, smalljones.com. Paul,
Thank you.
You wrote some very interesting poems about food in this issue.
Well, thank you so much. And I will say to David James that I started out the morning with an organic Love Buzz mix of coffee, exactly. So he spoke to me deeply about this. These are about food. The first one is bread. Pick up a round of bread and tear it. All the mountains you see are snowy. and the valleys too. The glow of it, as if winter had been waiting there in its regularity, its need to own the earth, to remake landscapes, a world where nothing that is cut bleeds. The edges of this world rise like snakes. Look closely and see their fangs and scales. They are dragons at world's edge, always awake. Some have grown brown wings and sweeping tails. Bread's ragged edges are periphery. The crust holds the bread's true mysteries. The charm, life of yeast, and all that entails. Yeast, many charms. What does that entail? Their gasps give bread its rising mystery. Gases grow in gluten's periphery. Neither plant nor animal, no heads nor tails, water, grain, and a little warmth await these beasts without skin, feathers, or scales. In their house of dough, they writhe like snakes. They die when bread is baked, but never bleed as their bodies build the unique landscapes, mountains, and caves you hope for as you need, wishing winter into the dough. There, inside the browning crust, yeast grows in fits. Yeast in a half hour make their snowy scenes. Thank the yeast, then raise the bread and tear it.
Lovely.
Thank you. The next one's called Artichokes. On long stalks, they make a masculine bouquet. Heavy-headed bunch nodding over my shoulder. Disinterested planets. Older versions of quiet campfires where men circled around coals. Where thorny silence was a way to speak. Once at home, they are stone mothers, covered in the green scale of lichen, the weight carried in the womb, firm seasonal bud, private and pollinous. That blessing on all lips come round to confirm the feeling we reach when we hold the green world in one fist, one perfect globe, unstemmed. Each thick-fleshed rose, each tight-petaled breast, a thing no one can know without a trick of slow steaming, of softening the spikes. So we meet in hunger, ripe to taste the other in this meal, as we shred the leaves free, work toward the delicate, secretive hair, peel it apart, devour the old cliche, the tender heart.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Carole. Are you ready, Carole?
Ready? I'm ready, yes. Okay.
Carole Standish Mora, MFA, PhD, is a writer, scholar, and educator with poems published in Two Hawks Quarterly, the Prism Review, Red River Review, the Caterpillar Chronicles, Moronic Ox Literary and Cultural Journal, Between Literary Journal, Flint Hills Review, and the Seventh Quarry. She received a Pushcart nomination in 2011 and in 2014 won the West Coast ISFOD Poetry Competition judged by Peter Thabit Jones. She holds an MFA in creative writing, poetry, and fiction, a PhD in depth psychology, and enjoys gardening, cooking, textile design, art making, photography, travel, and research related to young, creative process, and the arts.
Thank you,
so much
Rula.
for joining.
Thank you so much to you and everybody that's read. I feel so nourished this morning that it's really overwhelming. I'm amazed to be in this company. I'm going to read the 3 poems that are in this issue and then 2 others, short ones at the end. And I'll just say this first poem, I'll share my screen quickly, is an acrostic poem. And it came about while in my MFA program, taking a workshop with the poet Richard Garcia, So it came about through a prompt and completely surprising, sort of non-typical for myself. It's very lighthearted and very much a language poem. So it's called After Chagall's The Birthday. And let me just scroll up a little bit. Let's see, there we go. Okay. Here in the fresh hangar of their private cabaret, the Cinnabar Lane gathers up the dusty dreams of the dessert she had planned and shakes them off. He is into speleology and she, in soft, pink-tinged handmade camisole, close to the skin, admits to being an Epicurean and never satiated gourmet. The epic coq au vin she just prepared has hit the spot, and for dessert, millefeuille, presented on her best bakelite, filled with sweet, somewhat thick kumquat jam, fresh from the tree just outside their window, the window of their romantic Mediterranean hideaway, a stone's throw from the Orange Coast. Home to Our Lady of Loreto, this has become their Balerian island, where they conjure nightly bonfires in her velvet boudoir, flush with juju. Tonight, she serves up a mean baby, just a jigger of Stoli, a little less Grand Marnier, and half a jigger of Bailey's, swished and swirled over cracked ice and strained into a pony glass that glistens like the black patent leather and chrome stool, modernist, slick, a bit uncomfortable. Both so tired of being propped up like that, he makes her a woo-woo, all peachy and tart with cranberry. They unpack the theremin and begin a slow dance. Soon the calyx, campanula, and baby's breath bouquet begins to emit sounds all smooth, spooky, and innocent. They both whisper, mon chéri, and yes, even the cicadas chime in. This is no mare's nest. They hung up their magic carpet and their bathysphere is complete. No joke. Their jouissance unfolds and they float, flesh swaying so gently, they even forget to take off their shoes, so deliquescent they are with delight. I have to say, I do not drink hard liquor, so the prompt was to choose exotic places, exotic drinks, and randomly toss them in. So that was that very uncharacteristic poem for fun. The second's a little more personal, about my own discovery of the power of language and image to evoke a sense of place and feeling. It's called Tidal. Today, when the ship arrived while unloading the cargo of spiced tea, limes, and onions, I rolled up my sleeves and let the skin on my arms burn. The ropes held for once, and maybe I'll eat something with a thick sauce this time tomorrow. I guess I really wasn't sure it was coming, even though the birds behaved badly in unison for nights on end, making a racket with their squawking and me just striking rocks together for spark. They smell it coming, even if I can't, and am deaf and dumb to the eventide that has been trying all along to teach me to listen with my skin, to the change in the temperature that signals some change in the pitch of her sails, bringing her home to the long, sightless shore with no end to my empty bowl. And this poem is a Ars Poetica, also from a prompt from a workshop that I took a couple years ago. A little, also lighthearted. Talk about writing poems. It is like a disappearing act or the magic of sleight of hands. It is art, it is science, it is none of the above. Oh, sorry. A blind person can do it, even the deaf and dumb. A kind of intelligence is needed, but like too much salt will ruin the dish. There can never be too much heart. Wishing for a certain outcome invariably leads to blind alleys. At the same time, getting lost, good and lost, is advisable, up a creek even. If you can put on a cloak and pretend you're an ancient Ertstapa, that helps too, even if you have to look up a word or two. Some days the recipe is very difficult to follow, many ingredients unknown or very hard to find or way too expensive. The hunger is strange and impossible to appease. If the plums appear magically, eating them immediately is not advised. it is best to gather them into a bowl, a blue or yellow one perhaps, and set them on a table near a window. You might leave them for a day or two, practice remembering their smell while in some other room. While in this other place, take out a deck of cards and build a card house, nothing fancy. You might also blow it down for fun. When you've run out of games to play, take down the dulcimer and sit for a while, playing even if you don't really know how. Then as the afternoon light is giving way to twilight, you might go polish a plum. Then, when you're ready, bite. A sweetness will fill your mouth, sometimes with a touch of sour. Notice how wet the inside of your mouth then feels. And if you keep on like that, you'll soon reach the seed, which can be thrown away or planted. I advise the latter. And whoever said there is a way out of this mess was wrong. There is no way out. The trick is in reversals, trial and all. It is worth it. There's a trail of sorts, after all, that is made in the walking, step by step, a new land, lost and found, arriving, leaving. Or maybe it is a kind of circle dance with words, dance to a music only you can hear. So become a magician, cook up a storm, wander, linger, enjoy the changing weather, take shelter here.
So beautiful. Become a magician, cook up a storm.
Yeah, and it's very unexpected sometimes.
Yeah. Like reading and spell casting, go hand in hand.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's traveling, really. I think language is just an amazing, I've been so many places this morning. So grateful. This poem, I was working in downtown LA at the Bradbury building, and I would go over to Central Market for lunch. And on this particular day, in Central Market, full of immigrants and, the farmers market, and there was a blood pressure device amongst all of the things for sale there. It was just so unusual. So in Spanish, it's presión de la sangre. And there was just a tension in the air. There's so much gentrification and then, a lot of poverty. And this is very much an imagist poem. Union Station, Central Market, downtown, concrete, sawdust, gray, remnants of paint, red and turquoise, low rumble, staccato Spanish and traffic. Paper bags crinkle, then a sweeping, scooping sound. Vegetables displayed in neat, small stacks along the top of an aluminum counter. Hand-painted price signs attached to wooden sticks, stuck in the middle of each pile of potatoes, 2 pounds for $1. A small, agile-looking, dark-skinned, black-haired man in red apron is tossing more of the small, red potatoes on the stack and arranging them. The produce isn't named, just priced. Assorted chili peppers, potatoes, and onions. The market is open air. Presión de la sangre reads the red paint on a white sign. Chop suey, chow mein, Jolt Cafe, Central Produce, Public Market. A child cries, a man whistles, Bunker Hill, Angel's Flight, Union Station, Central Market, downtown, concrete, sawdust, gray, remnants of paint, red and turquoise. Low rumble, staccato, Spanish and traffic. Paper bags crinkle, then a sweeping, scooping sound. Vegetables displayed in neat, small stacks along the top of an aluminum counter. Hand-painted price signs attached to wooden sticks. Staccato, Spanish and traffic. Bunker Hill, Angel's Flight, Presión de la Sangre.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all the beautiful images. So it certainly was very imagistic. Thank you.
This is one really short poem about sort of language as a place, and a little bit of food in this one. Speaking of rooms, remember when I spoke of rooms, the ones Dutch painters fill with light, where moments fixed and finite dwell as people work and rest and wait. I told you how I long to stay within those bright, cool rooms and listen to the self-same sounds, then sit with apples in my lap. Or light a fire, then by the window stand and gaze a while in stillness, until I leave the place behind to make my own small picture here.
Beautiful.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank
you, Carole, for
thank
all
you.
this beauty.
Thank
And
you.
and next, Paul. Ralph. Yeah, Ralph is next.
Hi.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
So, after a lifetime of literary endeavor as writer, reader, teacher, critic, bookseller, editor, and appreciative listener, Ralph Earle now creates websites for poets, bodywork practitioners, and like-minded people. Recent poems have appeared in Red Fez, Triggerfish Critical Review, and Sufi Journal. His collection, The Way the Rain Works, won the 2015 Sable Books Chapbook Award. During the pandemic, he has been taking long walks and teaching people to use Zoom.
Okay.
Ralph, looks like you've been doing lots of interesting things, creative things lately.
Sure, thanks. And it's delightful to be here, and I'll echo what so many other people have said about what a wonderful thing you're doing, Rula, in bringing such an
Thank you so much,
international and
Ralph.
diverse community together.
This
Yeah.
is what everyone is doing. I mean, the fact that you have all put all this beautiful creative work. I mean, this is how the issue came out. Thank you.
Sure. This first one is from my new chapbook, Seeking a Publisher, on what it was like to grow up in a privileged enclave outside New York City, and how it affected my life. And really, the main trade-off is, we had anything that we could want materially, and yet we had very, very little emotional. There was a great amount of distance, and that's what this poem is about. Strawberry ice cream. After we swam, my mother let us get ice cream. Yellow-green maple seeds drifted in the sunbeams. Barefoot, we walked to the window across hot concrete. It was only later I hated her endless prep school letters. I liked strawberry, how cold the pulp felt in my teeth. This is Recipe for a Heavy Heart. It's a pandemic poem, and it's the kind of poem that we're all familiar with, that we write in order to work our way out of some kind of emotional difficulties we found ourselves in. Recipe for a Heavy Heart. Pulled 3 scallions from the rich dark soil, clean them, slice them, scatter them in the pot where your heart is cooking. Add a cup of snow from your childhood, algae from the pond, the communion wine you didn't swallow. Chop that honeymoon photo of your father, the one you forgot about. Mix it with lawn clippings. Fold in the soft remains of apples gnawed by wasps. Offer it to the heat. How different the ingredients taste as they blend. Simmer to the point of tenderness, hours, days, whatever it takes. This is the feast you have waited for. Nothing overlooked, nothing overdone.
Wonderful. Love the recipe.
Yes, try it sometime.
Thank you so much, Ralph. And I'm also happy to see that Joan was able to make it.
Okay.
So hello, Joan.
And I'll just finish with one more here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
You've got one more. I'm very sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. This is it's playing with sonnet form. It's 14 lines that are all rhymed, but you wouldn't know it from listening. And this is a true life experience. It really happened to me. A man like you deserves French fries. Behind a counter where flawless cabinets flick out straws, 3 machine tenders in green and white await my word. I call to a young girl near a tall device like an injection mold, offer the spoils of my pocket for something thick and cold with chocolate she can dump in a cup. Her smile slides its fingers up along my thighs. She says, a man like you deserves French fries. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ralph. That was lovely. Joan, good morning.
How are you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. All right, great. So happy that you were able to join us.
Thank you. I've been so enjoying everyone's poems. I just thank you very much for letting me come late. I apologize for being late. So.
You weren't late, don't worry. The thing is, your recipes and the writings, they just, I mean, they were among the ones that made me the hungriest.
Well, that's good. That's an Italian mother's dream.
Oh God, they are unbelievable. So which ones will you be sharing with us now?
Okay, I hadn't really prepared to share.
Okay.
Do you have them to share on the screen? And
you want me to? Okay, you want me to put them on the screen?
If you wouldn't mind, because it would take me longer to find them.
Sure. Okay.
I might want to read. I think people might best enjoy the one I wrote about the olives with my mother. That's actually an essay. If you'd rather go with the poems, just the poems are fine too.
Olives. Yep. No problem.
Bread and olives. I think.
Yeah, bread and olives and farfalle spinach. So
yes, and then to go into the poems, I think you pick one and I'll read any one you want. Okay. Everything's short. So the bread and olives is as short as a poem. So it actually started out as a poem. And then I realized it worked better as a piece of nonfiction. So thank you.
There it is.
I appreciate the opportunity to read. I didn't think I'd come in time to do anything.
We're so happy that you did.
Okay. I don't have my glasses on, but I think I'll be all right. Until age 6, every Saturday, I went to the Cuda Company, my grandfather's business, in nearby Braddock with my mother. Upon arrival at the warehouse, Mom began to work, not at the adding machine, and dispatched me to walk 1 block to the Italian bakery, where I exchanged a $1 bill for a warm loaf of bread in a white paper bag. After giving the bread to my mother, I worked on my coloring books until the siren call of brine-filled olive barrels pulled me out from my mother's office into the small sliver of retail space between cases and counters. My pattern was unchanging. A short walk past the barrels, quietly quietly mouthing the names of the olives as I went, bringing their names to my lips from long experience. Nero piccolo, nero normale, nero gigante, nero brillante. I probably read that wrong. Dry, wrinkled, no brine. Verde piccolo, verde normale, verde gigante. These green giants were my favorite. Can you push up a little? You move the screen up a little, dear. I can't see the part. Yeah, thank you. There you go. When I was sure my mother was on the phone or occupied by her adding machine and my aunt up front was talking with a customer, I would stop by the green giants. Then I pushed back the lid and scooped up as many as the pierced ladle held. With my left hand, I grabbed out as many as I could. Leftover olives splashed back into the barrel. I replaced the ladle, closed the lid. Quickly, still furtive, sure my aunt or mother would scold me for eating olives so early in the morning, I hid in a tiny nook behind the crates of Checo pasta, bounded by cases of 6-in-1 canned tomatoes. It was my favorite spot. Out of sight of retail customers, my mother's glass-windowed back office, and my aunt. One by one, I dropped each olive into my mouth. Each was so big it barely fit into that space where my tongue could enjoy that briny saltiness and my teeth could begin to strip their firm yet delicate skin from the pit. When I had chewed the flesh and sucked the juice even from the pit, I spit out the used olive, hid the pit in my sweater pocket to throw away later, and repeated the process of attempting to satiate my unending capacity for olives. One morning after, move it up a little, please. One morning after, thank you, after a bit, I heard my mother's footsteps down the wooden planks. Mom walked right up to my hiding place, 2 pieces of that crusty bread in one hand and a few black and green olives in a small bowl. At least 2 of each for her and 2 of each for me. Somehow she knew just where to find me and knew I was eating olives. She sat down beside me and we alternated, a bite of olive, a bite of bread. We talked about the olives, about my week at school. Finally, I asked her, "How did you find me?" "Easy," my mother laughed. "This is where I used to hide to eat olives when your grandfather brought me with him to the store." Thank you, Rula.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So you weren't allowed to eat olives in the morning?
No, I wasn't allowed to take them out of the barrel. And in any case, that, you know, in America, they don't eat olives in the morning, although I learned to eat them, not very hard for me to learn to eat them in the morning. When I was in Turkey, I thought, what a great idea, olives eaten for breakfast. Sounded wonderful to me.
That's what I mean. From my side of the Mediterranean, from Greece and Lebanon, we have olives for breakfast. I mean, you could just have olives for breakfast.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, but it was not considered in the US. I don't know if part of Italy that my family was from, but my mother was also born in the US. So if they just thought olives were an afternoon and evening food, but it, you know, they were, I think that was the saltiness that they did not associate with breakfast.
Probably,
so,
yeah.
But I love it. Still do. But there are no more olive barrels in stores, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Joan. You wanted to share a
Thank
poem
you for
too,
letting me.
right?
If you have time, but I hate to hold everyone up.
You're the last one, so.
Oh, okay, great. Well, if anyone,
I will read a really tiny poem after, but.
I think there are some small ones there, but if anyone needs to leave, my feelings will not be hurt. I came late and I appreciate having enjoyed as much of the party as I have. So
thank you for being here. So there's cold carrot curry and a platter of meze.
Yeah, I would do the carrot curry before.
Oh, where
the
are
meze.
they? Wait a minute.
I don't know. I don't know what happened to them. That's the comment section. It's also the one about arboreal rice. I don't know where that is.
All right. Okay. So I better check that one out. Let me.
They were in the one you sent.
Yeah.
me.
Let me check the PDF because I think that would be better.
But that's all right. I don't want to hold anyone up, so they can look at it in their own PDF if they want. So the platter of meze is a little sad. So
we'll go for the cold carrot
curry with that. Pardon me?
We'll go for the cold carrot curry.
Sure.
Okay.
That's happy. And if anyone's making lunch, they can pick up the recipe in the poem.
Okay. I have the PDF here, so let me just try to find it.
The third poem is arboreal rice.
Arboreal. I don't think I got that one. Was it in the PDF?
It was in the PDF.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I was surprised to see it because I had forgotten about it.
Okay, sorry, Laurette. I mean, Joan.
Oh, is it ready?
Yeah, Laurette is probably thinking about us.
Yes, indeed. She was there yesterday, right? I'm sorry I had missed yesterday. Well, that's all right.
I'm really sorry about that.
I'll let you look for it later. It's probably just a problem, and we can't trust computers.
I know.
Right. That means I'm going to be introducing you, I believe.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yes. Let's hear Rula.
So,
Thank you.
The founder and editor of Indelible, and the reason we're all here, in one sense at least, Rula Maria Deeb, who got her PhD from Leeds, is a creative writer and literary scholar whose poems and articles have appeared in several books and journals. She has authored 2 books, Jungian Metaphor in Modernist Literature, published by Routledge in 2020, and a poetry collection, Simply Being, published by Chiron Press, 2021. She is the founding editor of literary and arts journal Indelible and creative producer of literary event series Indelible Evenings, as we all know. Deeb is also the founder and director of Psych Creative, a monthly event for artists and writers with a background in Jungian psychology, and co-editor for the forthcoming Routledge collection, Feminisms and Technology. She's also the food blogger behind Beyond Zucchini, a member of the Poetry Society, the British Association for Modernist Studies, the International Association for Jungian Studies, and the Jungian Society for Scholarly Studies. She's currently an assistant professor of English at the American University in Dubai. And as I say, the founder, the reason we're all here in one sense at least. So Rula, please regale us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Omar, for the introduction. Okay, so this is a small poem. It was originally called Rose Syrup. I met the wonderful poet Mab Jones a couple of weeks ago, and I shared with her some of my poems. So we had a little poetry surgery, as they call them in the Poetry Society. She suggested that hello? Can you hear me now? Okay, I don't know what happened with the microphone. Maybe I will need to put it back in again. Can you hear me perfectly though? Is it fine without the mic? Okay, maybe I should switch the mic. So the new title of the poem is Essence of Rose, and this is a drink that is very popular during summertime in Lebanon. It's basically made out of distilled rose water with a bit of red food coloring. It's concentrated, so it could become a syrup, and then you mix the syrup with cold water and ice. Now, there's another way that is popular for drinking it, and it is to freeze the cups, but not freeze them entirely. Freeze them just so that you would have the upper layer frozen, and then the liquid inside is cold enough to be almost frozen. Okay. The theme here is also how food can show us this connection between the material and the spiritual. The spirit of roses is conjured in this glass, a ruby chalice smelling of rosariums and stories. Tell us again how you were shed from Aphrodite's eyes. Remind us why we, like Mark Antony, fall in love again as we slip into the essence of your fragrance. Cups frozen into the obscureness of translucence, we doodle with transparent lines on the coating fog, and through the hearts and smileys sketched, see the sanguine color, the juice through the now transparent parts. Light has entered, revealing the core of the rose. Is this how wounds become places where light enters you, as Rumi had said? In one motion, our spoons skate through the ice-bound layer, cracking into the heart. Through that, we drink it all in. The spirit, the tears, the wound, and the light. Thank you so much for listening and for being here. I greatly enjoyed each and every poem, essay, story, everything, artwork. So this was an amazing issue. I'm greatly looking forward to seeing more of your poetry in future issues. Now, the theme of the next issue has not been officially assigned on the website yet, but it is the theme of the feminine. Men, please, we also want your submissions as well. So it's not just for women, it is about the feminine, which concerns us all. So I hope to have it up on the website within the next couple of weeks. Now, because this was such a successful issue, because people are so passionate about writing about food, I was thinking, I mean, we might not have another issue that is themed about food, but we could have a little anthology later on in the future, maybe sometime next year. So if you're interested, please let me know. I'll send you an email anyway and ask who would like to be on board. So thank you all again for the marvelous poetry, for the great time. And, you know, there's a lot to be thankful for. So maybe this is like a little grace on some poetry table instead of the dinner table or breakfast table or whatever table you're in according to your time zone. Thank you all. And I hope to see you again. We have lots of indelible evenings or mornings for you coming up next. So there's nothing really for July or August, but we will start again in September. So follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And there's also a mailing list that you can join. I mean, you are in the mailing list already, but if anyone here who's not a contributor would like to be in the mailing list, please join it. It's already on the website. So you can just click there, enter your email, and be part of our mailing list. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rula.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Loved
you,
it.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone. Thank
Yes.
you.
See you.